So Shabbat Shalom, as we're going to look at the things that the Father is going to speak, because what I have noticed is that, and I'm sure you've noticed, with every Torah portion reading that we've been doing, and like I explained in Are You Ready for What Is Coming, when I take you through and bring you understanding of Genesis and of Exodus and of Leviticus, and now us entering into Bemidbar, the wilderness. And so I first want to be able to just share with you things that was brought to my attention this week when the Father just spoke to me in a supernatural way, of when He wants to speak something that is not going to come because I'm not sitting down reading the Word and, or I'm sitting quiet with Him. But, we have to be in this place of where we are constantly connected. We have to learn to just be who the Father created us to be. And while we are being, He's going to do. And He's going to speak from different places. Just like I said, Elsie going to this petrol station and just going to put petrol in the car, and this petrol attendant turns around and says to her, "Ma'am, if one door closes, another door is going to open." Just like that. Now, why would he say something like that to her? But that is a word that had to come from a totally different source that you would not expect for the Father to be able to speak, because the Father can speak through a donkey when He wants to speak to His people. And we just need to have ears to hear when it is Him that is speaking. Because I think that's the problem. A lot of times we become so lulled into this world that we're living in that we have learned to just not even discern Him at all. And unfortunately, this is my problem right now, is that this is where we are. Is that if I listen to where the church is at, if I listen to where people are at, they are in this lull, this la-la land. That, wow, everything is just going to be like it was before. If you're going to look at what's happening in Israel right now, man, everything is open, the beaches are open, the shops are open, the children are back at school, and it's like, wow, business as usual. We're just going to go back to the way it was before. And it's like I said, there's the calm before the storm. And so this is what I want to share with you, because, just like you are speaking about a freedom, there is a danger in the freedom. And when we start to come into freedom, that's why I said, we have been in this time of the cleft of the rock. And there is a reason why He's hedged us in, as we have been protected. And that was beautiful the way you put that. We have been hedged in, and we have been protected, and we are under the shadow of His wing, Psalm 91, because the Father is trying to equip us. He's trying to strengthen us. He's trying to encourage us. He's trying to make us understand that, sure, the dark days are going to be ahead of you. You better come to know who I am. You better spend time with me in my word and come to know who I am. Because at the end of the day, the more we get to read His word, the more we get to know Him in a more intimate way. And let's not remove the Old Testament and the New Testament and say, well, I don't want the Old Testament because the Yah that's in the Old Testament is not the same one of the New Testament, but they are one. So at the end of the day, how can you separate them? How do you separate other Yah from Yahushua and say, well, I don't want that. No, Yahushua came to bring me a different way. But excuse me, Yahushua is the one who's going to come, and He's the one who's going to judge the nations of the world, just like Abba Yahuwah was judging the nations of the world when it was in the foundational covenant. So we cannot separate them. And who is the one that's going to be able to open the seals? It's Yahushua, the very one that, we say, oh no, He just comes to bring peace. Yes, He came to bring peace. But when He comes, He's going to come as a judge. And He's going to judge the nations of the world. And these things are now, we need to understand these things unfolding. And so on Sunday evening, we were having our time of prayer, and normally, sometimes my husband has the TV on and he watches these this food channel or whatever it is, and the TV had been on, but he put it on silence. But for some unknown reason, after we finished having our time of prayer, I went into the kitchen and was preparing some food, and this movie started coming on the TV. The sound went back on again, and this movie was starting. And I don't even know how this movie came about, but this movie started playing. And now I'm sitting there, I'm busy preparing food, but I'm looking at this because it's all of a sudden, it's drawing my attention. And in this movie, it starts as this little girl with her mom and her dad are going to a fun fair, a merry-go-round, wonderful fun fair. And these fun fairs are so wonderful for kids, and for people to just escape from the things of the world, and we just want to go and enjoy some time out and enjoy the games and enjoy all these things, and and it's a world away from the world. It's going into this fun fair, into this merry-go-round, into this place of where you can just enjoy life. And the mother leaves the little girl with the father and says, "I'm coming now." And she says to him, "Watch the little girl." But he's so busy playing this game, and the little girl stands there, and the next minute she starts to walk. And she starts walking. And as she starts walking, all of a sudden he has this hobo man standing there, and he's standing with this board, and the board says Jeremiah 11:11, and I thought, is this for real? What the heck kind of movie is this? Am I just watching on the TV now? What the heck is this, Jeremiah 11:11? And immediately I said to my husband, my Bible was on the table, I said, just grab this Jeremiah 11:11. What does it say? And so he goes and gets my Bible, and so the little girl continues to walk, and now she walks down to the beach. And as she walks down to the beach, in the horizon is a heck of a storm coming. You just see the thunder, the lightning, massive storm that is on the horizon coming. And I thought, oh, here comes no good thing. And as she sees the storm, she starts to walk back again. And as she walks back, she goes into this place of where, I don't know, mirrors and things like that. And that's when my husband said, this is a lot of rubbish. We switch off this movie now. But I got to see what I needed to see. And as she walked out of this place of this mirrors and everything, the rain started to fall. And the storm is just starting with the rain starting to fall. Because, sometimes you experience a bit of the raindrops that come, the rain comes before you get the magnitude of the storm that's going to hit. And so I immediately went and picked up Jeremiah 11:11, and I thought, okay, let me read and see what is Abba trying to tell me from Jeremiah 11:11. And it says, therefore, thus says Yahuwah, see, I am bringing evil on them, which they are not able to escape. Then they shall cry out to me, but I shall not listen to them. So, I stood there and I said, okay, Father, what the heck is this about? And he says, you see, my child, there are a people that are living in this dream world of theirs, in this merry-go-round, and it's going to be business as usual, and it's going to be, I'm going to come out of this lockdown, and I'm going to go back into the things of the world, and I'm going to continue as if there was nothing that even happened. And even the people of the church, they are just wanting to go back and, back to business as usual, back to everything. And what we do not understand is that on the horizon, there is a heck of a storm on the way. We've already started to feel a bit of the raindrops. And this is just the beginning of what is coming. But the people are lulled in this merry-go-round. And it's like this games, and this is just a game, and it's okay. We don't need to worry about anything. But what we do not understand is that the judgments are about to be unleashed, and people are not discerning. And so, why are we in this time? Because the Father needs us to be able to set ourselves apart, because, man, next weekend, we have the most important day that is going to be upon us in terms of Shavuot, so that we can receive a fire, and this fire is the fire of the Father's love. But when the Father's love comes in with fire, it doesn't just come to be able to fill us with His power, but it also comes to purge. And we need to understand that there has to be a purging that needs to take place. And so, Father is taking us through this process so that we are not in this lulled place. We are coming into a wilderness, because the wilderness was part of their equipping, was part of where they had to understand that they were going to have to obey instructions. Because if we go a little bit further up in this Jeremiah 11, what does it say? So let's just go look at verse 6. And it says, "And Yahuwah said to me, proclaim all the words in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem, saying, hear the words of this covenant to do them." So understand, we are going to receive this covenant that He's going to give us, because on the day of Shavuot is about a covenant being given that He gave on Mount Sinai, when He came with all power and the sound of the shofar, and there was authority and power, and the people were cleansing themselves, setting themselves apart 3 days in order to be able to receive. And those instructions are to be given to us on the tablets of our hearts. And now look at verse 7. "For I earnestly warned your fathers in the day that I brought them up out of the land of Mizraim until this day, rising early and warning, saying, obey my voice." So we need to learn to be able to understand, what does it mean to obey His voice? The voice of this word and the voice of the spoken word, that we really need to be in an hour now where we really need to hear His voice, when He's going to turn around and say, you better prepare, because famine is on your doorstep. There are things that are about to unfold. "But they did not obey or incline their ear, but everyone walked in the stubbornness of his evil heart." Is that not exactly when it came to the time of when Noah, when you entered into the ark, when the Father told Noah to enter the ark, what was the whole reason why he was going to bring judgment upon the earth? What was the reason for Him bringing judgment upon the earth? The reason that He brought judgment upon the earth is written in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, and it says, "Yahuwah saw the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." So, at the end of the day, there's many that might say, I serve the Father. Oh, I love Him. But what are the continual thoughts of their hearts? Is it evil or is it good? And so you must understand, when the Father told Jeremiah that he was to tell the people that they were going to go into Babylon, it was because they were so far from the Father, from where they should be. And if we look now, there are people standing and people having to speak. And people saying, oh no, this is wonderful, that we serve the Father, we do all these things, and we have all our churches and everything, but what impact are they doing? What impact do they have? How have they impacted people in being able to really follow Abba Yahuwah and in His ways that He wants to be served? Or are they impacting people in being able to have more of being able to follow after their own desires and their own will, and praying prayers that's about more for me and more for my world and more for my kingdom? Is that not what we have been receiving up until now? And we are in this la-la land because we are in this merry-go-round, and nothing's going to happen to me. Because you know what? Me, I'm going to fly out of here. I'm not going to go through anything. Sure, I am not going to go through any of the stuff. So, when we look at this, we see that at the end of the day, he says, and Yahuwah said to me, there is a conspiracy among men of Yehuda and among the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And I just heard someone in this week saying, these people with these conspiracy theories. And so even the believers are saying, let's not listen to this because this is just conspiracy theory. And so at the end of the day, we need to understand, is it conspiracy theories or is it the Father trying to warn us? But we are so lulled and in our merry-go-round that we're not even going to listen to anything that is going to be destructive or evil being spoken because, no, I don't want to listen to anything bad. I just want to listen to good. Well, that is exactly what the prophets in Jeremiah's day was doing. The prophets in Jeremiah's day was having to only speak to the people about peaceful things, and we are not going to go into anything and everything is going to be fine. But at the end of the day, isn't it interesting, because that is exactly what landed up happening, what landed up causing Jeremiah to be put in jail, was because Jeremiah was speaking a totally contradictory word to all the other words that were being spoken. And yet it turns around and it says, he hands them over. If this is what you want to believe, you can carry on. You can believe all the good things, it's fine. And you will not be prepared when the day comes, when the storm is in the horizon and the storm is coming. You are not going to be prepared because you will not see the storm coming. Because you are lulled by this wonderful thing that you surround yourself with. And then the very next day, all of a sudden, Elsie has gone and put the TV on again. And again, another movie. As this entire movie that starts. Something about a rope thing or whatever, I don't know. And all of a sudden, as this movie starts, she says to me, I want to tell you, come see. Again, another movie with another message. And now this one had a big board. You could see that this was an end-time movie. Because everything was like, all everything was in ashes. Everything was burning. There was nothing left. These people were walking with their little, like a trolley, with their few possessions, and it was really hectic. And again, a board. And the board wrote on it, Jeremiah 19 verse 6. And Jeremiah 19 verse 6 says, therefore see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, that this place shall no more be called Topheth, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, but rather the valley of slaughter. And I thought, oh Father, what the heck is going on? Every message that I get is hectic message. And so this movie was so intriguing. Elsie, then I was intrigued too, because I thought this is obviously an end-time movie. Maybe I should just watch and see what this is about. But you know what? When I got to the part of the cannibalism, I couldn't handle. But you see, I didn't go read the rest of the message. Because the rest of the message says, in verse 9, from verse 8, it says, and I shall make the city a ruin, and a hissing. Everyone who passes by it is appalled and hisses because of all its plagues. Sure. What was Jeremiah speaking about over here? Because at the end of the day, in the time of Jeremiah, I don't remember there being many plagues. But these plagues are coming in the book of Revelation. And it says, and I shall make them to eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters, and eat one another's flesh in the siege, in the distress with which their enemies and those who seek their lives distress them. Yo! But what was interesting, I never got to, I stopped watching because I couldn't watch that. It was just too much for me. And so I came back again at the end. And at the end, what was interesting is the little boy that is left, because his father ends up dying, but the little boy that is left, and this little boy is a special boy that carries a light. And he's for the good, and he's all about what is good. And the little boy, eventually there comes a family, a man comes, and he says, come with me, because I see your dad has died. You cannot be alone. And he says, I can only go with those that have the light. No, those that have the fire. And he says, do you have the fire in your hearts? And the man looked at him and he smiled. And he says, do you carry the fire? Do you carry the fire? And you see, that was the message the Father wanted to give me. Those who carry my fire, those who are going to carry the Ruach of Yahuwah in my fire that I'm going to put within them. Yes, my fire is going to purge, but my fire is going to empower. He is a consuming fire. And it's the fire of Abba Yahuwah's love. That He brought them into this wilderness, but He comes and He cleanses them of their worldly way. And so why has He brought us into this time? Because there's many things that He still needs to be able to deal with us within our character, within our lives, within ourselves. There are things that are there. And so these two messages came to me when I wasn't even looking for a message. And I said, Father, what are we going into? Because there's been the sense within me that after Shavuot, there's a great outpouring that's going to come now at Shavuot. And that is why Father is preparing us. But that is why I'm saying to you, and you know what is interesting? I've heard 2 other prophets speaking and saying exactly like what the Father said to me. You need to go and study the book of Acts. You need to watch the movie of the book of Acts. And if you don't know where to get it, I'll send you a link. Because they're just like you get the book of John and the book of Matthew. There is the book of Acts. And you need to watch it. Because what the Father is showing me is just like those disciples. They were empowered for a time. They needed to be empowered. Why? Because of the trials and the tests that were going to be upon them. And even as those trials and those tests, they were going to come before a Sanhedrin council. Matthew chapter 24, He's saying, when you come before the councils, do not worry about what you are to speak. I will put the words in you that you are to speak. So at the end of the day, there is much that's going to come upon our lives. We need to understand that the control has become worse and worse. You know, even though believe me, you need to understand this was the first wave. The second wave is still going to come. Just this morning I was listening to someone saying that the Spanish flu, the first wave came in the March until May. From the June, it lifted and people went back to normal like there was nothing that happened. And by the fall, okay, in our case, we are opposite. But by the time it came to September, the second wave hit. And the second wave was 10 times worse than the first one that killed how many more people? And so, from the things that the Father is showing me, we need to understand that we need to be able to have discernment. We cannot be in a merry-go-round mentality. We cannot be in a mentality of where we are in this merry-go-round, where we are in this fun fair, and we're just going to take ourselves out of everything that is around us in this world that we're living in, and we say, oh, you know, it's just all going to be wonderful. We need to understand the world the way you know it. That's what the word that the Father gave me in October last year. The world the way you know it will never be the same again. And little by little, it's been taken from you. Little by little. And just when people think they're going to have their freedom, more and more, when you're going to start seeing the vaccine coming, when you're going to start seeing the chip, the ID 2020 that's going to come out, then we're going to see what's going to happen there. When we start seeing testing already being done on the sides of the road, no, you all have to be tested. Then you're going to see where more and more of our liberty and freedom. Now this is a different freedom. A freedom to be able to worship Abba Yahuwah. A freedom to be able to be obedient to Abba Yahuwah and to His word when it's no longer going to be allowed a freedom that we have now to be able to speak, when all of a sudden it's not going to be there. I mean, I just heard from a friend of mine of this man that is very bold. Very, very bold. He's speaking about things that are going to happen. He used to be ex-CIA. And this man is so in tune with warning the people, trying to tell the people about what's going on with this artificial intelligence and all these things that are going on. He was on his phone last week. And all of a sudden, something came through the phone. He said it was like this frequency that came through the phone, and he threw that phone and he started going through a heart attack. And his wife just managed to take him out. He knew that he just said, get me out of this house. And when he came out, it's a miracle that he survived. But a frequency came through that phone that came to it, that he started to have a heart attack. When he was just having a normal phone, whatever he was speaking on the phone was definitely something that was not supposed to be. That someone was trying to take him out. Someone's trying to they're all going to be taken out. Eventually, if you're going to be one that's going to stand for truth, what do you think is going to happen? And he's trying to warn Abba Yahuwah's people. And so, I want to share with you today, as the Father started to give to me, as I started working through this Torah portion reading. And what is so interesting, and that is why today we are going to look at what the Father wants to show us right now in terms of something that is opening up the eyes of my understanding, because that is what's happening now. He needs to open up the eyes of our understanding for us to be able to discern the times and the seasons that we are in. Not that we know exactly when He's going to come, but He says you are to know the time and you are to know the seasons. So, if we have a look, it's very interesting, because when we start with Bemidbar, now Bemidbar meaning, the wilderness, and as we start in Bemidbar, what is the first thing that He tells them to do? He tells them to be able to count, and He puts the tribes in their groups. Because by chapter 2, you get to the place of where you've got the east, on the eastern side of the Mishkan, you've got the tribes that are going to go on the east, the tribes of the north, the tribes of the south, the tribes of the west. And He divides them. And He counts all of the tribes. So it's amazing how, to me, as we start Numbers, we start looking at how the Father lays out His tribes. He calls the clans of Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, Dan, Asher, Naphtali. He's calling each and every one of them. And He puts on the east side, He puts them all in their clans. And I've had a look at this, and it's actually very interesting, but that's not where I'm going to go right now. Because the ones that are in the north, there's a message to them. The ones that are in the east, there's a message to them. Those that are in the west, there's a message to them. If you just want me to share it with you, I can give it to you where it says the ones of the north, the ones of the east, which was Yehudah and Issachar and Zebulun, they are praise. There is recompense and exalted habitation. That's what each one of the names, Yehudah, Issachar, Zebulun, means. And then their sons, enchanter, given by Yah. Yah is Father. So if you take praise, we are to praise Him like as an enchanter, to be able to be enchanting Him and Him alone. Where people go into trances and enchantment over the worldly music. But we are to praise Him and be enchanted, because the son of because it talks about, each one of them talks about Yehudah and then who the leader would be. So Yehudah was the leader, Nahashan, and that's enchanter. And so here we see that, what does it mean? It means praise, enchanter. Then you look at Yehudah, then you're going to look at Issachar. And Issachar, the leader was going to be Nathaniel. And what is Nathaniel? Nathaniel is given by Yah. So it's exalted. You see, Issachar means exalted. Issachar means there is recompense. And that recompense, his son is Nathaniel, and that means given by Yah. So there's recompense that's going to be given by Yah. And then there is Zebulun. Zebulun is exalted habitation. Means exalted habitation. Yah is Father. So Yah is our Father who wants to inhabit. And He's the one who's to be exalted. He's our habitation. And He's the one that we need to exalt. That was on the east side. Then on the south side, because then we get the next one, which is the south side, which is Reuben, Shimeon, and Gad. Reuben is, behold, the son. And that is, the one that was of Reuben was Elazur. Elazur is Maya, is a rock. So behold the son. Maya is a rock. Who is the son? Yahushua himself that was given to us. And he will be the rock of ages. The one on which we will stand. And then there is Shimon, which means hearing, heard. And the son is Shelumiel, which means peace of Yah, friend of Yah. So he's to be heard. And we will have the peace of Yah. We will be a friend of Yah. And then troop, which is the Gad. Gad means troop. And it means Yah has added. So Yah will add to us a troop. West side. The west side is made up of Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin. Ephraim is, I shall be doubly fruitful. And it is, my Yah has heard. So my Yah has heard, and we will be doubly fruitful. And that is, the son of Ephraim is Elishama. Manasseh, causing to forget. So it's causing to forget, and it is the reward of Yah. He will cause us to forget our suffering and our pain and our things, and He will be our reward. Yahuwah is our reward. Doesn't matter what we lose. Doesn't matter what we go through. He will be our reward. What is Benjamin? Benjamin is son of his right hand. Who is the son of the right hand? Yahushua himself. And who was his son? Abidan. And who is Abidan? My father is judge. My father is the judge. So Yahushua is seated at the right hand of the Father, and he will become the judge in the end. He will judge the nations of the world. On the north side, who's on the north side? Dan, which means a judge. And then his son, Ahiezer, my brother is help. So he's the judge, and he will be our help. Then Asher means happy. There will be a time of joy eventually, that we will rejoice, be happy, because of the event of Yah, of that which the Father will do, because the son, Pagiel, means event of Yah. So there is a great event of Yah that will be then come. And then there's Naphtali, which is my wrestling. And my wrestling, his son is Ahira, and that is brother of wrong. So even though we go through the wrestling, don't worry, because he will be able to bring the brother of the wrong, that we will be, even though we will be wronged, we will be the brother of, even though we will be wronged. And that was just the message that the Father gave me, of just looking into these 12 tribes. But then He linked it up and He said, so where are we right now, Natalia? Just like in the beginning of the wilderness, remember I said to you, as we then enter into the wilderness, we're coming into the next place that the Father's saying. So we've been equipping in Leviticus, and now we're going to come into Numbers, which is Bemidbar, and Bemidbar is the wilderness. And what is the wilderness about? The wilderness is about we're going to be tested and trialed in this wilderness. But what does he do? He seals off each one of them. He puts each one of them in their camp, in their place. And so the Father says, let's go look at Revelation chapter 7. And so what am I doing right now? What am I doing right now? Because if we are looking at this place of Numbers, if we're looking at Bemidbar, where are we right now? And right now, we are in Revelation, as the Father said, then go and sum it up. Did I not do this in Revelation? Did I not seal off? Just like I positioned all my tribes in Bemidbar, did I not in the wilderness, did I not position my tribes? Did I not call commanders? Did I not set them in place? Did I not call each of them? And here we go to the Revelation chapter 7. And we read from verse 1, and it says, and after this I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth. And the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal of the living Eluah. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers, to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea. So you see, these seals are to be able to harm the earth. So we need to understand that as these seals are being opened, there is great destruction. And this seal is already, I think it's the 6th seal. But look at what it says. Do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of Eluah upon their foreheads. So his servants are going to be sealed. And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 sealed out of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So here again, we got the tribes being sealed. And that's why I'm saying the Father is bringing the 2 tribes to become one. The tribe of the house of Israel and the house of Judah becoming one tribe, becoming one house, because they were 12 tribes. And so, yeah, we hear the tribe of Yehudah, the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Asher, the tribe of Naphtali, the tribe of Manasseh, the tribe of Simeon, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin. Different tribes here to those that were there. But what's interesting is that after this, he talks and he says, after this I looked and I saw, verse 9, after this I looked and I saw a great crowd which no one was able to count. And out of all the nations and tribes and peoples and tongues, and standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in white robes and palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, saying, deliverance belongs to Eluah, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb. And all the messengers stood around the throne, and the elders and the 4 living creatures, and fell on their faces before the throne, worshipping Eluah, saying, Amen. The blessing and the esteem and the wisdom and the thanksgiving and the respect and the power and the might to our Eluah forever and ever. Amen. And one of the elders responded, saying to me, who are these dressed in white robes? Where did they come from? And I said to him, Master, you know. And he said to me, these are those coming out of the great distress, the great tribulation, having washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Because of this, they are before the throne of Eluah, and serve him day and night in his dwelling place. And he who sits on the throne shall spread his tent over them. Now, are we going to suffer hunger? Let's just look and see. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun strike them, nor any heat. Because the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne shall shepherd them, and lead them to fountains of water, of life. And Eluah shall wipe away every tear from their eyes. So at the end of the day, there is a great multitude. And I'm trying to make sense of this great multitude. There are those that are sealed, which is of the 12 tribes, and then it talks about this great multitude. Now, this great multitude, they don't seem to be the same as this 144,000. I don't know. Like I said to you, I'm still trying to understand these things. What the Father has showed me is He's saying to me, do you see, just as we start Numbers in this time, as we're entering into this time, amazing, as we start Numbers, as we are now about to be able to go into Shavuot, where there's a great outpouring that's going to be given. Is this great outpouring for everybody? Only for those who are really going to seek Him. So could this be part of the 144,000 that are really going to be seeking Him, that He's going to be able to give a great outpouring? But we are following this book of Numbers. And as we're going to have to learn that many of these tests that these Israelites are going to face, we too are going to face. And just like Yahushua had to face tests and trials, so will we. And this is why the Father is wanting to open up things to us. And so then He took me to Hosea chapter 2. Now, for how long? I have said, sure, I need to just teach on Hosea chapter 2. But I'm just going to, the way He showed it to me today is now in totally different light, again, to the way that I have understood it before, because now it's opening up even more to me. Because the book of the prophets, the one that we look at, is Hosea. So let us go and look at Hosea chapter 2, because that is part of the Torah portion reading. Interesting how Hosea chapter 2 is tied into the beginning of all of this, of these Israelites being numbered, and as the Father is raising up a Levitical priesthood. And as He's saying to, in chapter 4, that He's saying, these are the priests that I want. Now, the priests were not numbered together with they were not part of the 12 tribes that were, the 3 in the east camp and the 3 in the west camp. And they were not part of that, because they had another function. And the function that they had was the function that they were to be able to take care of Abba's Mishkan, his tabernacle. And how specific was He? How specific was the Father? That, my goodness, this is how this table of showbread needs to be covered with this blue cloth, and this is how this needs to be done. And then we still think that we can just serve the Father the way we think we should serve the Father. Just like Francois just preached earlier. There is a freedom in the way we're supposed to worship Him. That's why He gives us instructions, because there's freedom in those instructions. Because if we remember clearly, when we look at David, when he decided to transport the ark, and he decided to put the ark on an ox wagon, and decided to put 2 men next to the Ark of the Covenant, and this is the way they were transporting the Ark of the Covenant, an innocent man died. Let's not forget, an innocent man died. Because there is a way that the Father wants to be served, and if man doesn't come in line with Him, it's dangerous for us. And this is why I'm saying that we need to be able to start to speak word and start to equip the people, because we need to understand that that is our protection. His instructions is our protection. It's there to protect us. Because there's evil days ahead of us. And if we do not love, if we love our lives, we're going to lose it. But we are not to love our lives unto death. Because at the end of the day, are we going to be obedient to Abba Yahuwah, or are we going to be obedient to the systems of the world? What are we going to do? We can only keep the law as much as we can keep the law. I have to laugh. Because this is really getting interesting with this drinking and smoking. Now they're saying even if you're going to smoke in your car, you are going to have to give a slip to show where you went and got this from. And they are even wanting to bring this law down, lock down until level 1. I'm thinking, sure, this is getting hectic. But could this be part of Abba Yahuwah's way of being able to help people to finally get rid of their addictions? But yet, at the end of the day, I am amazed at how many people are still illegally getting stuff. Because man is not willing to crucify the flesh. What are they people going to do when there's no more money for food? You're still going to want to go and get your lust of your flesh when there's no more money for food? You're going to need the money just for you to be able to buy a loaf of bread. It tells you, by the 3rd seal, it tells you a loaf of bread is going to cost you a whole month's wages, which is 1 denarii in those days was a whole month's wages. So, my goodness, I don't know. Oh no, not a month, a day's wages. A day's wages was a denarii. So that which you would pay for a whole day's wages, that was when the test came, when he said, he gave each one the same for the day's wages, and it was a denarius. And that's going to be a whole day's wages is what a loaf of bread is going to cost us. And these things are coming, people. If they're written in this word, they are coming. We need to understand something. We cannot change what has already been inscribed in this word. That which the Father has spoken, that has been inscribed by the prophets, that has been inscribed by Him, He's not going to change. He's going to help us to overcome many things, but He cannot change what is written in the Word. That we must make very clear. We must be very careful in praying prayers against what is being written in His Word. We must be very careful. Otherwise, we stand up against Yahuwah Himself and what has been written in the Word. And so we're going to look at Hosea chapter 2. And we're going to start from verse 5. Now we know Hosea had to marry this prostitute woman, which was not easy for him to do. And we are going to look from verse 5. And their mother has whored. She who conceived them has acted shamelessly. For she said, I go after my lovers, who give me my bread and my water, my wool, my linen, my oil, and my drink. So, okay, I think, let me just start from verse 1. Say to your brothers, O my people, and to your sisters, O my compassionate one. Strive with your mother. Strive, for she is not my wife, nor am I her husband. Let her put away her whoring from her face, and her adulteries from between her breasts. Lest I strip her naked, and shall set her up as on the day she was born, and shall make her like a wilderness, and shall set her like a dry land, and shall put her to death with thirst. So there are a people, if they're going to continue coming up against Abba Yahuwah and his ways, this is a portion that is going to come against them. Because he's going to show you clearly here who are his set apart ones. Who are his true set apart ones. And he's going to bring this about. And that is why we need a wilderness. Because the wilderness is to be able to strip us from the lusts of the ways of Egypt. They didn't want to give up their Egypt ways. And the wilderness brings them, when he brings them into the wilderness, he brings them, because the root word of midbar comes from medaber, which means to speak. He wants to speak to you tenderly and lovingly in the wilderness for you to be able to hear his instructions and follow him. So he says, for their mother has warred. She who conceived them has acted shamelessly. For she said, I go after my lovers, who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my linen, my oil and my flax, and my drink. My oil and my drink. Now, this is just like when we are in the world, we turn to a lot of things that becomes our gods. Some people, their job can become their God. Many people have different gods in their life. But all of a sudden, you are going to see how in this passage of chapter 2, this is exactly what he's doing with us right now in where we are, for us to understand what he's busy doing. You have fornicated with the world and the ways of the world and the things of the world, and I am going to bring you back to me. Because the Father's purpose and plan is to bring us back to him. Everything of what he wants is to bring us back to him. And as we come back to him, he teaches us his ways. So he took them out of Egypt. He brings them into this wilderness so that he can start to teach them his ways. How they should worship him. How they need to love him. And this is what he does. He's teaching us his ways. And why has he put us in this time of a cleft of the rock, is so that we can draw closer to him. Closer to his heart. To equip ourselves and make ourselves strong in him. Because he's trying to remove, even if you're going back to work right now, it's not like it's business, it's not like it's busy out there. It's not like it was before you went into lockdown. That's not the way it is. So there's still a portion of you being set apart. So let's look in further. And look at verse 6, and this is exactly what Francois was speaking. Therefore see, I'm hedging up your way with thorns. And I shall wall her in so that she does not find her paths. So you see, now all of a sudden, it's becoming more difficult for us now. Our ways are being hedged up. I'm going to hedge you in. I'm going to put you under the shadow of my wing. I'm going to hedge you in my garden. I want to be the one to speak tenderly to your heart in this wilderness. Because this wilderness is the root, like I said, midbar comes from medaber, which means to speak. Which then we get to devarim, which is words. Which is dabar. The root of medaber comes from dabar, which means words. So, what is he going to do? He's going to hedge us in. He's going to put thorns there. So this becomes more difficult for us. So you see, now even, take for example, take the Christians now, that were so used to, now it's when I go to church now, and I go to my church building, and when I sit in my church building, then I can be able to, take out my Bible, and I'm going to have to read and listen to what the pastor's got to say. And now I'm going to have my little bit of, praise and worship that's going to happen over there. But have you got used to doing this on your own? Because if not, now you are hedged in. You are going to have to learn to do this on your own. Because you don't have this congregation that you can go do this in. So if you have not accustomed yourself in being hedged in, my goodness, Father took us out of church since 2005. And only in 2017 and then I used to maybe go to like a fellowship that I used to go to in the beginning, for the first, up until, it was, this is the thing that we were sent into this, it was like a fellowship, but it was only once a month. Eventually my spiritual mother moved to Cape Town, and then that fell by the wayside. And we had to learn to seek Abba Yahuwah on our own and in our own fellowship, and worship Abba by ourselves. And only in 2017 did Abba finally then put us again in a fellowship. But then the minute I came to Israel, I was taken out of that again. So I had that for I had it for 2 years, for a year. And then I was taken out of that again. And then I had to learn to be able to fellowship on our own again. And so he hedges you in so that he can be able to lovingly protect you and teach you and show you his way. And so let us continue with verse 7. And she shall pursue her lovers, but not overtake them, and shall seek them, but not find them. Then she shall say, let me go back and return to my first husband, for then it was better for me than now. So you see, all these things are bringing us to a place of where we can finally humble our knee and come closer to the Father, because at the end of the day, what else do we have to turn to? He's removing everything. He's removed everything. There's not even entertainment. There's not gatherings. There's not social gatherings. There's nothing. He's removing it. So we're coming back to him. And she did not acknowledge that I gave her grain and new wine and oil, and increased her silver and gold, which she prepared for Baal. So you see, Father has given us finances and wealth in this world. But what have we done with it? Did we put it back into a Baal system? Did we continue to enhance a Baal system? And it's been about our kingdoms and the things that we have acquired for ourselves, because we're about to lose it. Because the time is coming when you're not going to be able to have those things anymore. And so he says, therefore, I shall turn back and shall take my grain in its time and my new wine in its appointed time. And I shall take away my wool, my linen covering her nakedness. So you see, the day is coming now. We are going to have all these luxuries that we've had taken away from us. Oh, it's going to be taken away from us. All the luxuries that we've been able to have, like he says, even your grain, the food that you have, your grain that you have, it's going to be taken away. And the wool and the clothes and the things that we're going to have, it's going to be taken away. The possessions that we have, it's going to be taken away. Just like with them, understand, they had to go into the wilderness. How much could they take with them? What all could they take with them? They couldn't take a lot with them. They took their animals, they took a bit of their things, put it on their donkeys, on whatever it was that they had, and took a bit of their possessions, but they couldn't take everything with them. So when the Father starts to tell us it's time to go, you can't take everything with you. And now I shall uncover her shame before the eyes of her lovers, and no one shall deliver her from my hand. So isn't that amazing? He takes us out of that place, and he's going to bring us into a place of where no one is going to be able to take us out of his hand, because at the end of the day, the only thing we're going to look to is going to be to him. He's going to be our only source. And eventually, all the things of the world are going to grow strangely dim, and he's going to be our only source. He's going to be the only one that we are going to be able to turn to in the end. And then verse 11, and I shall cause her to rejoice, and I shall cause all her rejoicing. Listen, I shall cause all her rejoicing, her festivals, her new moons, her Sabbaths, even all her appointed times to cease. Now, is that not exactly what is happening right now, where we are right now? I mean, hello, churches are not being able to gather. They don't have all their rejoicing going on in churches anymore. They are not being able to keep all their man-made festivals that they want to be able to keep. All their new moons, all their things that they're going to be able to do, it's not going to happen. And you see, this to me, I see it as a greater plan of what the Father is doing, even with those that are in the church, bringing them out from the things that have kept them bound by religious doctrines. And now they're finally going to be able to come and sit down and start to read Abba Yahuwah's word so that they can be set free. And once you read the word, it's no longer the doctrines of demons that are going to equip you by messages that are going to come that are infiltrating. But it's going to be a pure and wholesome word that's going to come from His word, that the more we cry out to Him, teach me your ways, Abba. That when they start to read this Bible, they're going to start understanding, wait, there's certain ways that the Father wants us to be able to serve Him. There's a Shabat that we need to keep. There's feasts that we need to keep. That's His feasts. And my goodness, all of a sudden people are talking about the significance of Passover. And now all of a sudden they're talking about the significance of Pentecost. There's no such word as Pentecost. Pentecost is the word for 50, but the word, what they celebrated, if you go look in the book of Acts, what they were celebrating was Shavuot. That was Abba Yahuwah's feast. And it was the fulfillment of Abba Yahuwah's feast. But now we've even changed it and called it Pentecost. There's no such thing. That's a word for 50. But where does it come from? We've counted 50 days. From the time of the resurrection of Yahushua, we started to count our 50 days. And then we're going to have the feast of Shavuot, which is the most important feast. It's the feast that's in the middle of the menorah, which is the feast that basically feeds the rest of them. Because if we don't have the Ruach of Yahuwah, we've got nothing. If we only have Yahushua and not the Ruach of Yahuwah, how are we going to stand? It doesn't help us to just have salvation. Because He says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Because it means it can be lost. But that is why He gave us the Ruach of Yahuwah at the day of Shavuot. That's why He said, tarry. Come together so that you can be endowed with power. Because I need to give you my Ruach. For you to be able to walk in this time. For you to be able to understand that you're going to need the Ruach of Yahuwah. For you to be able to hear His word. I mean, imagine, the Ruach of Yahuwah was with them. And if we start to read through the book of Acts, how many times the Ruach of Yahuwah was leading them? And we're going to need to know His voice. We need to know Abba Yahuwah's voice. And so now He says in verse 12, and lay waste her vines and her fig trees, of which He has said, these are my harlot figs, that my lovers have given me. And I shall make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. So you see, we've acquired many things. And even with this prosperity movement that started, that was one of the biggest things that came to bring a lot of destruction upon the church. Because if you take, especially when you come amongst the African cultures, like you take when I go minister amongst the Ethiopian and you take the African cultures, all they want is this prosperity message. Because it's how the Father's going to prosper them. They don't want to hear anything about they've got to suffer through anything. No, the Father's got to prosper. He must just prosper me. The prosperity for what? More acquiring for yourself? More building of your own garden? Or Abba Yahuwah's kingdom? And so that is why Father is bringing them away from everything and saying, there's going to come a day you're going to have to trust me. for everything. Because I am the only one who is going to be there to help you, no one else. Verse 13, and I shall punish her for the days of the bowls to which she burnt incense and adorned herself with her rings and her jewelry and went after her lovers and forgot me, declares Yahuwah. So there's great destruction going to come, especially for those who did not seek Abba Yahuwah, did not serve Abba Yahuwah. But they have gained the kingdoms of this world, and they have been about the kingdoms of this world, and not about Abba Yahuwah. Great judgment is coming upon them. Therefore see, I am alluring her. Now listen, from here it's going to get interesting. Therefore see, I am alluring her, and shall lead her into the wilderness, and shall speak to her heart. So you see, what is the wilderness about? The word midbar is wilderness. And what does he do in the wilderness? Medaber, he speaks. So he speaks to her in the wilderness. That is what he's going to do. He's going to speak to us in the wilderness. He speaks to our heart. In that difficult time that we're going to find ourselves in, this is the closest place we're going to be to our Abba Yahuwah. That's the closest we're going to be to him, because we're going to need to trust him, just like the disciples had to trust him. When they were being persecuted, when they were being handed over, they were having to trust him. And give her her vineyards, and there, and the valley of Acca, as a door of expectation. And there she shall respond as in the days of her youth, as in the days when she came up from the land of Mitzrayim. So once again we are going to be like that first love, that if we've maybe lost that first love, we're going to be restored to that place of that first love, because there's going to be no other lovers that are going to take our focus from him. No one else. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah. But understand, it's for those that are going to allow him to take them through the processes. Because I'm not saying that this is for everybody. For those who have ears, let them hear what the Spirit of Yahuwah, what the Ruach of Yahuwah, what the set-apart Spirit of Yahuwah says to his people. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah, that you call me my husband, and no longer call me my Baal. And that word Baal is my Lord. So you shall no longer call him my Lord. Because listen to what is going to be the next scripture. And I shall remove the names of the Baals, the names of the lords and the gods, and all these other gods and lords that we have spoken from her mouth. And they shall no more be remembered by their name. He's going to bring us into this place of where all of this is going to be stripped from us. And we are going to have to call on the true name of Yahuwah, Yahushua. And in that day I shall make a covenant for them. Now this, we're going to look very carefully. In that day, okay, so there's a day. In that day, I shall make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, and with the birds of the heavens, and with the creeping creatures, and the ground. When bow and sword and battle I break from the earth, and I shall make them lie down in safety. Now when I read that scripture, the Father said, you see, the beasts of the field and the birds of the air, those things will not harm you. And this is where he gave me Revelation 9, verses 1 to 5. So his bride, his set apart one, the one whom he sealed, the one who is his set apart one, the one who has allowed him to take them through this wilderness and seeking him and being obedient to him. Listen to what it says in Revelation chapter 9 from verse 1. And the fifth messenger sounded, and I saw a star from the heaven, which had fallen to the earth. Now if we look and see, that fallen to the earth, and the key to the pit of the deep was given to him. And he opened the pit of the deep, and the smoke went up and out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun was darkened, also the air, because of the smoke of the pit. And out of the smoke, locusts came upon the earth. So there are locusts that are going to come upon the earth. Listen to what they're going to do. Locusts come upon the earth, and authority was given to them, as the scorpions of the earth possesses authority. And it was said to them that they shall not harm the grass of the earth, or any of the green matter, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Eloah upon their foreheads. So what is the seal? We have just read, he removes the bowl names. He sealed us with his name. When we look at Revelation chapter 7, in Revelation chapter 7, he seals them with his name. There it says, the seal is the seal of his name. Because if we look and see where do we see it? We see it in Revelation 14. Let's quickly look at Revelation 14 verse 1. And I looked and I saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000. How many were sealed? 144,000. And having his Father's name written upon their foreheads. And now we read in Hosea chapter 2 that he says, I remove the bowl names, and you shall no longer call me Lord, my Lord, no Adonai, which means my Lord, no Lord, no bowl names, Adonai coming from Adon. And I shall remove the names of the bowls from her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. And so he says that he sealed them. These are the ones that were sealed, who did not have the seal of Eloah upon their foreheads. And it has been given to them that they should not kill them, but to torture them for 5 months. So when this time comes, when this great star thing that's going to fall from the sky, that's going to bring, I believe, the darkness that's going to be when the sun's not going to give its light, and this is going to be for 5 months. And their torture was like the torture of a scorpion when it stings a man. And in those days men shall seek death and shall not find it, and they shall long to die, but death shall flee from them. Now this ties in with Revelation 6, that's got to do with the 6th seal of when it happens, when it says, and he opened the 6th seal, and they saw a great earthquake come and be, and the sun became black as sackcloth, and hair and moon became like blood. These are part of, Abba's going to help me to be able to tie in these things. So I think that the 6th seal is with the 6th messenger. It's tied in. These are the things that the Father still needs to help me to be able to tie these things up together. And it says, and the locusts looked like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads were crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. So it's again, and it talks about the seals being horses that are being released, and these horses are going forth. And so these things are all tied in together. But in in Hosea chapter 2 verses 18, he says, in that day I shall make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, and with the birds of the heavens, and with the creeping creatures of the ground, when bow and sword and battle are break from the earth, and I shall make them lie down in safety. So he will protect us from that destruction that is coming. And I shall take you as a bride unto me forever. So then, after all of this, when Yeshua comes, he said, this is what will happen. I shall take you as a bride unto me forever, and shall take you as a bride unto me in righteousness. So are we going to need to be righteous, walking in righteousness, upholding, keeping his Torah ways? That's the bride. And in right ruling, and loving commitment and compassion. And I shall take you as a bride unto me in trustworthiness, and you shall know Yahuwah. Know the word yada, to perceive, recognize, become acquainted with as a husband and a wife. And it shall be in that day that I answer, declares Yahuwah, that I answer the heavens, and they answer the earth. And the earth answers the grain, and the new wine, and the oil, and they answer Israel. So there will be, Abba's going to take us, Yahushua will come, take his bride, and put his feet on the Mount of Olives. And I shall sow her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her, who had not obtained compassion. And I shall say to those who were not my people, you are my people. So you see, even if we were not part of the house of the original house of Israel, of those 12 tribes, we are grafted in to the house of Israel, and we're part of those 10 tribes that went into the dispersion. And even if we're not of the original seed, we are those of the grafted seed coming back into the everlasting covenant that was made with Avram when he put Avram to sleep and he cut covenant with him. And then he makes another covenant with Moshe. And the covenant that he makes with Moshe is, if you will obey. If you will obey my commands on Mount Sinai, which is what was given to us now as we're going to celebrate Shabat, the covenant of his commands written upon the tablets of our hearts. And I shall sow her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her who had not obtained compassion. And I shall say to those who are not my people, you are my people, while they say, my Eloah. Amen. Praise you, Abba Father Yahuwah. And this is his word. And this is what Abba is revealing in this time. And that is why he's saying, we need to understand a great wilderness is ahead of us. And I am hedging you in because I need you to be able to be protected. I'm going to put you under the shadow of my wing, but I need to strip you from many things that is standing in my way, that has been standing in my way for long. And so for those that are in the church, they have got an opportunity now to start coming in as they start to read their Bible. But if they still want to entertain themselves with, like I saw in that dream that I had, with putting on that, this pastor that was speaking all these nice things, and these people were being entertained by listening to all of that, you will be in your merry-go-round. And when you look again, destruction is going to be on your doorstep. And you are going to go through severe destruction. And you will be martyred if you have to, of course. You're not going to take the mark of the beast. You will be martyred for your faith. But you have an opportunity and you have a time now to come into the fullness of the things that Abba Yahuwah is wanting. And that is why he's giving us a window of opportunity. From now, this Shavuot, until we start at Yom Teruah, it's a window of opportunity that we're still going to have. And we better not waste the time. We better make sure that we start to speak his word. And that is another thing. Because what did they receive? The power? When they received the power, they spoke with boldness. We will not be silent. We are going to speak with boldness. And we are going to tell the people, you've got a time now still to repent. And then there will be those that will be repenting as things were going to go along. But now is the hour of repentance. So may Abba bless us all.